Okay. So let's go to page 2. So the first thing, we always start out pretty slow. The first thing in a ratio question is whether you're being given a part to part or a part to whole. So if we look at this, we have milk to dark. So they do it respectively. We have 36 chocolates. So my best commercial for these ratio problems is to put the labels down. So we're just going to do, we want dark to the total. And that will be obviously 5 out of 9, because the 9 is the total. And we have 36 total. And so then we can cross multiply or just see we're multiplying times 4. We're multiplying times 4. And so we would have 20. So that's not so bad. So let's look at this one. In a certain class, the ratio of men to women, so the men are 3 and the women are 5. We have 24 total in the class. How many are women? So again, this is the best thing is just, you can just even shorten it if you want to. Women to the total, it just takes a second to write that down, will be 5 out of every 8. We have 24 total. And so we would have 15 women. So we're going to go to a book problem. I'm going to go to page 254, looking at the example in gray. And so these will sort of be sprinkled throughout your test. So this question says, on Thursday, I'll be sure I'll give you time to get there. On Thursday, 240 adults and children attended a show. The result ratio of adults to children was 5 to 1. How many children attended this show? So we need to find children to the total, which will be 1 out of every 6. And our total together is 240. And I can either cross multiply or see I'm multiplying by 40. 1 times 40. And so the answer would be A, 40. Is that okay, Parker and Jace? You guys are so amazing. Okay, I want to do a little bit harder one. Hold on. So I want to go to 424, number 4. So this is module 2, so it's going to be a little bit harder. A proposal for a new library was included on an election ballot. A radio show stated that 3 times as many people voted in favor. So for favor, we would have 3x. as people who voted against it. So against, this is a little bit different, would be just 1x. A social media post reported that 15,000 more people voted in favor of the proposal than voted against it. So that means the 2x is going to be how many more people were in favor. And that's 15,000 people. So this is a module 2 one. So it would be 7,500, which would be A. So heads up on that one. Parker, good? Okay, good. We love you guys. I mean it. Okay, now we're going on to the next page. Page 3 in the packet. A small bird habitat at an aviary contains only doves and robins. So doves is the 5, robins is the 2. One of the birds is to be selected at random. So what we want is we want robins to the total. So pick your answer. Did you get A? Good. Now this one is a little trickier. I don't know if you'll get one this hard. This would be we don't know if you're going to get a hard ratio problem or an easy one. So let's look at this harder one. Violet paint is made by mixing 5 parts blue paint to 3 parts red paint. If Albert uses this method for making violet paint, and he has 3 gallons of blue and 2 gallons of red, what's the maximum amount of violet paint that Albert can make? And this would definitely be a module 2. So see if you can follow this. So to get our right violet paint concoction, we need 5 to 3. But here's the problem. Our blue paint is limited. Do you see that? This confused a lot of kids when they took this part. So we only have 3 gallons of blue. So let's see what the red would be. We're going to cross multiply. And so we cannot use all of our red paint. We can only use 1 4/5 of it. So we have 3 gallons of blue, 1 4/5. And so that's going to be 4 4/5. Just a little bit different twist. You see, the problem was that we were limited by how much blue we had, and we couldn't use all of the red. Does that make sense, Parker? Jace? Yeah. Okay. That was a hard one. So here's another one, a little bit tricky. What is one possible number of gallons of oil? So we're doing oil to gas. And so we have 30 gallons of gas. But here's the trick. Let me not write that in yet. I'll put that over here. We want a mixture of lowest would be 1 to 8, highest would be 1 to 3. And I don't want to take the time. I'm just going to say it's going to be 1 to 4 because that's right in the middle. Why figure out the lowest amount and the highest amount? So that's going to be, I'm just picking 1 to 4 just to pick a number in the middle. And then we can cross multiply. And we would get 7.5. Do you see what I did there? I don't want to get the lowest number and then the highest number. There's a lot of choices. I just want to get something in between them. Okay with that one? Oh, good. You guys are brilliant. Okay. In a mixture of almonds and peanuts, I want you to try to do this yourself. So the almonds are 4 and the peanuts are 3. We want 5 pounds of the mixture. How many peanuts would I put in there? So we make our label. I'll let you figure it out. So did you guys get 15/7? Yay. Okay. On to another issue, a possible total. So another type of ratio problem involves calculating a possible total with a given ratio. So it's a multiple of the sum. I'll explain this with this egg problem. So eggs, you can't get fraction of an egg or you have scrambled eggs. So whole eggs are integers. So the eggs in a certain basket are either brown or white. If the ratio of the number of brown eggs to the white eggs is 3:2, you see the eggs have to be a multiple of 5, or I'm going to have scrambled eggs. Each of the following could be the number of the eggs in the basket, except which one, Jace? Which one is not divisible by 5?
13.
Very good. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay. At a party, the ratio of blondes to redheads is 4:5. So I have to have a multiple of 9, or I'd have a bloody blonde or NCIS problem, right? So Parker, which is the only number that's a multiple of 9 here?
27.
Thank you. So it's pretty easy once you've seen how to do it. That's all I'm trying to do is, okay, number 2. After a rough hockey game, Blake finds that he has 3 bruises for every 5 cuts. So he has 8 wounds, but thankfully he doesn't have any broken teeth or concussions. So anyway, we need a multiple of 8, and the only multiple of 8 there would be 32. So those would be easy now, right? If you get one of those, that's easy. Good. We're not going to do this one because we haven't seen any that hard. So we're going on to ratio trap. Okay. It's trying to trick us, like always, to solve this. Whoops. So let's try this one. Let me just. Okay, Becky's coin collection. She has quarters, dimes, and nickels. So we know we put our label there. Quarters to dimes is 5:2. Dimes to nickels is 3:4. We want to get, our goal is to get quarters to nickels. But we can't do that because the dimes are not equivalent. Do you see that? So we have to get the least common multiple between 2 and 3, which would be 6. So we're going to have to multiply this one by 3 and this one by 3. This one by 2. And so then we would get 15 to 8. Let's try another one. I hope I'm not going too fast. Whoops. Okay, at a fruit stand, the ratio of apples to bananas, the ratio of apples to bananas is 7 to 6. And you can work ahead of me if you'd like to. And bananas to peaches is 4 to 3. We want to get the ratio of apples to peaches. Well, we need the least common multiple between 6 and 4 because we don't want to deal with really big numbers. So let's just pick 12. So we're going to multiply this by 2, this by 2, this by 3. So now the bananas are equal. This by 3. So since the 12s are equal, we'll get 14 to 9. I just want to do enough that you sort of get the hang of it. So we're okay, Jason, Parker? Okay. Let's do, we have x to y, which is 4 to 5. Whoops. Ah. And we have y to z, which is going to be 1 to 2. So the y's are not the same. So we have to multiply this by 5 and this by 5. Now the 5's are the same. So we're going to have 4 out of 10. So when I get over here and I have 4/10, do I panic? What did they do to get the answer, Jace?
Just simplified it down.
Yeah, very good. So it's 2 to 5. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So if they give us one like this, what I would do is just pick a number for the slowest or the lowest person. So here we have, in preparation for a race, Charles ran half the distance that Emily ran. So Rachel's going the slowest distance. Let's call her 2. It's easy to make. We pick the lowest one. So if Rachel is 2, this is pick the numbers again. So Emily is going 3 times Rachel. So Emily's going 6, and Charles is going half of Emily. So he's going 3. So we want Charles to Rachel, which we can read right off. Our numbers are pretty good, which would be 3 to 2. I know it seems weird to be doing ratios when you're in high school, but it's on the test, so we have to cover it. And one last one, you can work ahead of me. So we have x to y, y to z. I like to do it vertically so you can see. So we have 3 to 5, and the ratio of y to z is 1 to 2. So these aren't equal. So I have to multiply this by 5 and this by 5. And then the 5's are equal. So x to z would be, let's see, where am I here? 3 to 10. So that's all good. Oh, you guys are awesome. We're not going to do this one. They're not that hard. They were that hard in the past, but not now. Okay, but there'll be some ratio and percent sprinkled, so we want to cover it. Sometimes when you see a ratio problem, you need to use algebra. So let's focus on this one. So we know from our triangle lesson, the angles of a triangle are 180. So we'll have 1x. Be sure you tell us how you do, Jace, okay? Because we're going to be waiting to know. So we have 1x plus 5x plus 6x, 180 degrees. So that's going to be 12x is 180. So each little x component is 15. We want the biggest angle. So that's our 6x guy. Which is 90. So it's easier in this kind of problem just to use an algebra algorithm, okay? Okay, next page. Making good progress. So sort of the same kind of problem. 3 lottery winners decide to split a cash prize. Now they use the word ratio, but we're going to use an algebra algorithm. So it's 1x plus 2x, and the whole prize is $12,000. So 6x is 12,000. And so each x is going to be 2 grand. And so the biggest winner will be the 3x. And so the biggest winner will be 6 grand. Does that make sense? I know it's weird to do ratios when you had them in 7th grade, probably. Okay. The measures of the acute angles of a right triangle. Now that's going to be 90 because the acute angles add up to 90 degrees, are in the ratio of 4 to 5. We want to get the smallest angle. So we want to do 4x plus 5x is 90 degrees. So each little x is 10. We want the smallest angle, which will be 4 times 10, or 40. So is that good? Okay. You ask questions if I'm not explaining it well. Okay. Proportions are the same thing. We have 2 equal ratios. And again, my commercial is just to put the labels there and you will never mess up. It's just 2 seconds. Chocolate to dollars. So 4.5 pounds of chocolate costs $10. We don't even think. We know we have $12. So because they're going to try to mess you up with this part, put the wrong thing in the numerator and the denominator. Then you just cross multiply as we did below, and you're going to get 5.4. Okay, wait a second. I might want to do a book. 1 second while you sort of absorb all that. Get a good night's rest today, Jace. Don't break up with your girlfriend or anything emotional, okay? I had one person, I said, do something fun, and they went to all-night bowling. Okay.
That
So
seems ill-advised.
that was ill-advised, but I didn't tell them to go to all-night bowling. All right, we're going to try one of these. So we're going to go to the whiteboard. I'll give you time to get there. This is a module 2, so we're on page 350. and we're doing number 15. Okay, an object travels at 12 centimeters per second. So we're gonna do centimeters per second. That just takes 2 seconds. So 12 centimeters is 1 second. We want to go 108 centimeters, and we know to put that up here. Then all I have to do is cross multiply. And so I will get 9. Pretty easy, right? So this is the secret, is just to put those tags in there. So let's go to the next page in the packet. This math lesson isn't too bad. Okay. Again, we're just doing coffee to dollars. So if we have 8 pounds of coffee, and then we have it all set up, so we just have to put 12 pounds as we don't know. And then we just cross multiply. And it's going to be $75. So that's okay? Good. Oh, I'm sort of tired of election stuff. In Marshall, so we have registered voters. Those are the ones who are actually on the rolls to vote over the regular voters. So 9 registered, 4 actually go to vote. We're having 3,000 votes cast. So how many were registered? Just use your calculator and cross multiply. I'm just doing enough of these that you sort of get all the kinks out. Did you get 6750? Yes? Good. This one is a little tricky because it says each year. So Joe is drawing a timeline to represent. So basically we have inches per year. Just takes a second to write that. So it's 60 inches for the whole thing is 150 years. Okay, we want 1 year is X. Does that make sense? Because we want to know how many inches. So just cross multiply that. Use your calculator. And you should get 8/2. Good with that one? Oh, good. We have people in our class that are actually sleeping in our class, in our live class on Sundays. So you guys I could kiss you, but I can't because you're in cyberspace. So high five. Okay, a machine seals cans. So we're going to do, sometimes there's a double conversion hidden in the problem. Would be a little harder, but they don't actually ask you any hard conversions like 1,760 yards in a mile. You don't have to know those things. This is just how many seconds in a minute. So we're going to do cans per second first. So this machine can do 4.5 cans every 3 seconds. So we want to get through 720 cans. But remember, our answer is going to be in seconds. So when I cross multiply that, I get 480 seconds. Might be tempted for D, but how many seconds in a minute? 60, right? So I just divide by 60. It would be 8 minutes. So sometimes there's a double conversion. You just have to read carefully. And we're going to pray that there's angels all around you tomorrow, Jace. Okay, the next one. If you feel the fluttering of a wing, it's just the angel I prayed for. Okay, sometimes there might just be only variables in the answer. So we're still going to do oranges to dollars. So we have 8 oranges cost $8. B oranges would cost, we don't know. So we're just going to cross multiply, divide by 8. And even though it's variables, we can still do it. It will be D. I know it's weird to do ratios. Okay, this one is a little harder because it has some geometry. I don't know if you'll get one this hard. So we have a pole with a ball attached to it. And so it's going to swing around the pole. This is going to be our radius. Because it's 2 meters, so our radius is 2. And we did circumference before, because that's what this would be, a circumference. So we need 2 pi r. So the distance would be, we put in the radius, 1 revolution would be 4 pi. Okay, so we're doing seconds to distance, sort of. So it takes 8 seconds to go 4 pi. Again, we put our labels on. We want to do 1 complete revolution, in 2 seconds. So we're trying to get X. So how many times will it go in how far will it go in 2 seconds? We just cross multiplied. And we're going to get just pi. So even if they put a little bit of geometry in, you still can do it. Before we do the next one, I want to do a book problem, I think, on 426. Let me see what's there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's do 18 and then 19. So can you help me with 19, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Okay, first we're going to do 18. I'll give you the page, I'm sorry. So we're in a module 2, and we're going to go to number 18. Jason, did you have time to do those other 2 lessons or not really? You did.
I like skimmed through them as best I could. I was gonna look at the English one after
Yeah.
the final English thing after this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You are a dutiful person. Okay, so 426. Okay. So we're going to start with a certain park has an area of, so the square yards So the square yards is well, first of all, I'll put it over here. 11,863, 808,
Yeah, 11 million.
or 11 million, I'm sorry.
That's right. You just said it wrong.
I said it wrong, sorry. And so we know that 1760 square yards or yards. Oh, we got to figure this out, right? We have to multiply this.
Right.
So we have the park, this is why it's a module 2. So 1 mile is 1760 yards, so we got to get square miles, which would be 1760 times 1760.
That is 3097600.
309,
Yeah, 3097600 square yards.
yeah. And so we know that we have this many. And so then, do you see why we have to get this number? Because we need to get square yards because we're in module 2. And then we just cross multiply, see what you get. Oh, Jace, by doing those lessons, you reinforce.
You have dots here.
I
Just
multiply.
1760.
I know, okay. Yeah, 1760
Yeah.
times 1760. And so when we cross multiply this, we should get 3.83b. Does that work for you? Parker, do you see why we have to multiply it's a module 2, so if you start to get harder questions tomorrow in math, that's good, Jason, because you got to the level 2. So let's try 19 with Jim's help, because it's hard for me to explain it. So I'm just going down another one. Okay. So let's read the problem together. So 1 gallon of paint will cover 220 square feet of a surface. Okay, so we're just going to do gallons to square feet. So 1 gallon covers 220 square feet. A room has a total wall area of W square feet. But I want to which equation represents the total amount of paint I need to paint the walls of the room twice? Okay, so if 1 gallon is 220 square feet, I need to do 440, right?
I said it's gonna be, so if it's 1W to do 220, and we're trying to do it twice, it's 2W over 220. And then you reduce it to W over 110. Which is A.
Okay, does that sort of make sense? It's a little hard. You're okay, Parker? Okay. Jace?
Or wait, did you put 2W because it's going twice
Yes.
with that thing? Okay.
I know, that one was confusing to me. Okay. So let's go back to the packet. And if you do any I don't know if you've ever done this before. If you've taken any environmental science class, this is how they figure out the deer population or the number of fish in a lake. They take out a little sample And so let's just go to a problem. Let's just go to the fish. Okay, so we have our sample and our total lake. I'll just call this the lake, right? Okay,
And you're doing tagged over total, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so a biologist removed 250 fish from a lake. She tags them. So, and she collects a sample of 75 fish from the lake. So the tag number is going to be, so in our little sample, I can't see this. Okay, 5 are tagged. So 5 out of 75 fish.
250. The total that she took out, right?
But in our little sample, it's 5 out of 75.
5 out of 250.
No, because the 250 goes here in the whole lake. There's 250 tagged. Because our little sample we're taking out, she has 5 out of the 75. Does that make sense? Okay, so then we cross multiply that. And ultimately, we're going to get 3750. Does that make sense? Take a minute to absorb it, because in the whole lake, Jimmy, there's 250 that are tagged. You see that?
Okay.
Okay, we're okay with that, Parker? And Jace? Okay, let's try this one. Same kind of thing. A high school in a town. So we have the high school in the whole town. In our sample, and then this is our total. So in our little sample of 200 people, 40 of those are high schoolers. So we know the high school has 1,200. How many are in the town? So I'll let you cross multiply and see if you get the answer. I don't know what kind of proportion and percent you're going to get. So just cross multiply that. And you should get 6,000. Is that right? Did you get 6,000 people in the town? Good. And that makes sense because it looks like it's 2/5 of the town are high school kids. Okay. Done with ratios. Hallelujah. That's good. Now we're getting into percentages. Okay. So if you're solving for a percent, you just take the part over the whole times 100. That's how teachers figure out your grades. The part equals the percent times the whole over 100. So I put some common percents here, but you know you can just use your calculator. I'm just sort of getting everybody back on board with percents. So this would be 50%, obviously, 25. You just divide 3 by 4. 1/8 would be 12.5%. It's hard to write on this thing. 37.5. 62.5. 87.5. Then a third we know, that's 33 1/3. 2/3 is 66 2/3. 1/6 is 16 2/3. 5/6 would be 83 1/3. And these would be 20, 40, 60, and 80. Okay, so let's try this. And then we'll do a couple book ones. So here's my Dove Middle School thing. When you have 45%, you probably learned it as you move it 2 over. When I was teaching middle school, I said you make a little butt. My corny things. So it'd just be 0.45 times 100. That's just going to be 45. So 1%, we drop the percent, move it, make a little butt. So it'll be 0.01 times 600, which is 6. If we have a multiple one, we just do 0.6 times 0.5 times 30. Put that in the calculator and we'll get 9. All right, this one's a little tricky. If I had a glass of water and 1/4 of it was salt, would you know it when you drank it? Yes. But if it was only 1/4 of a percent, it would be so nominal that you probably wouldn't even notice it. So for 4, we need to do 0.25%, drop the percent, make a little butt, or move it to the left. That's going to get us 0.0025 times 4, which will be 0.01. And then this is how your teachers do your grades. So if you got 9 out of 25 on a quiz, that wouldn't be that great. So then we're going to move it to the right. That would be 36%. And usually on the test, you can't put the percent in, right, Jim?
They'll always specify whether they want the percent or the decimal, so just do whatever it has in the question.
Yeah,
You don't add a percentage sign or anything.
you don't have to add a percent.
If the answer is 50% and they want it in percent, you just put 50 in.
So let's try a couple in the book. Like I said, the math isn't that hard tonight. So an easy one, 598, number 1. Oh, no, I think it's 578. Sorry. Can't read my own writing. Oh, this is a module 2, so it might be a little trickier. There's 55 students in a Spanish club. We're selecting some students at random. Of those that responded, 20% said they're going to enroll in the study program. So how many students are going to enroll? So we take 20%, move it 2 over, and then we'll just get 11 kids in the program. Does that make sense, Parker and Jace? Okay, good. Let's go to another one. There is a little tricky stuff we haven't got to yet. So I want to go to 502, number 1. So we can't say this enough. It's been a delight to have you both. So even though this is a module 2, just solve it for me and pick an answer. So you're getting 10% of means multiply. 470. So did you both get B 47? Oh, good. Okay, that was 502. Let's do 418, number 6. A little trickier. So we're actually with this one, we're doing 13 over 25. And see, they already have a percent problem in the thing. So we should just divide 13 divided by 25 and we will get. You see, you just put the 52 in. You don't need to put the percent in because they covered that in the class.
Yeah, and if you put in 0.52, you don't get credit.
Right. So
So
point,
always give it the way they ask.
yeah. Okay, while we're here, I'd like to look at number 7. For a minute, because this is more in the function lesson, but I want to cover it tonight for Jace. A model predicts that the population of Springfield was 15,000. So when have you ever, I don't know if you've ever seen these function questions before, but it's sort of based on interest equals principal times rate to the time. So we're starting with 15,000. That's our main number. Have you seen these before, Jace? Yes, sort of. Parker, what about you? Sort of too, yeah. Okay. The model also predicts that each year for the next 5 years, it's going to increase by 4%. Now here's,
Can I give a little suggestion for these?
yes,
So my quick suggestion is always make sure time equals 0 gives you what you started with, the 15,000.
yeah,
And if you do that, you immediately know it's C or D.
right.
So that you want it to work in 5 years from now, but you also
X
want
is 0 is
yeah,
going to give us our 15,000.
right. So you know it's C or D immediately, and then just make sure you can do it the 5-year part.
Okay, now here's the question though. It's going up 4%. And this is what I'm asking. Why would I not just do 0.4? Can anybody see why this would be wrong? You see why that would be wrong? That's just going to give me the increase, right?
Not the total
Not
amount.
the total amount. So I need to put that 1 in there, and that's what I want to specify for Jace who's taking the test tomorrow.
You can think of that 1 as 100%.
Yeah,
So you need that.
this will just give
Yeah.
us the increase. Does that make sense, Parker, to you? Why I need that 1? And Jace, you see why I need the 1? Okay, because that's sort of a trick thing. Okay, so then the answer is going to be D. We'll maybe do a couple more of these, but okay. So then 418, number 6, we did 348, number 7. I'll do one more. Okay, this one's pretty easy. It's a module 2 though. So I want to go to 348. Have you try number 7? So we're planting 300 seeds, but only 80% sprouted. It's a module 2, so we're taking 300 seeds, multiplying by 0.80, because we have to change it from the percent. right? It's just tricky. You got to get that. So that's going to be 240 seats is what you'd fill in. Nodding heads, good. That one wasn't too bad. Okay, so now we're going back to the packet. We're making good progress. Okay. Here we have a little chart. So what percent of the campers at Camp Chautauqua are at most 11 years? So they have to be 11 years and below. Do you see that? A lot of kids would just get the 0.24. But if they're at most 11, then we have to add all these up. And we would get 0.50, which is 50%. So that's pretty easy, right? Okay. So the next one, what if they expressed it this way? We're just trying to get you ready for every contingency. Based on the data provided, how much more likely is it for an 11-year-old, that mom, to let him go? So that's going to be 0.24. She might be a little more reticent to let a 9-year-old go. Have some tricks played on him in the cabin or something. And we just divide that, and that'll be 1.71. Okay. So far, so good. Like I said, this packet isn't too bad. What percent of 5/8 is 1/8? So we can divide by the 8. 1/5 would equal, put it in the calculator, and it's going to be 20%. So no matter what they give you, we got you covered. Okay, let's go on to the next page. I want you to try this one yourself. I'm throwing this out to you. You get on an airplane and 48 of the 60 seats are occupied. What percent of the seats are not occupied? So take a second. Okay, so I don't know how you did it. There's 12 seats that are empty. That's 1/5. 20%. Good, Parker? Jace? Good. Now this one's a little harder. I just don't want you to miss any ratio or percent problems. So here we have the graph above shows the percents of 5th graders at an elementary school who have the indicated number of pets in their homes. 60 of the 5th graders have 1 pet. See, my problem is I don't know the total. So I have to get the total. So 30% of the total is 60. And I divide by 0.30, and I'm going to get 200 5th graders in the school. But now I want to know how many have 2 pets. Pretty easy. After I've got the total, which I got through this equation, this one would be a little harder. I know. You might get some simple percents and then a couple tricky ones. So this will be 200. And I'm taking 20% of it. And so I'll come out with 40 children have 2 pets. So does that make sense? We're good? Chase, good? Good. Okay, now if they give you something like this, you just translate it into a math equation. So this would be 0.25 of is multiply 60 is equal to, drop the percent, move it 2 over, 1.25 of n. So all I had to do was translate the words into a math equation. Whoa. And so I'll get 15 is 5/4 of n. You can use your calculator. So the answer would be 12. Did you both get that? Parker, you good? Jace, you're good? Okay. Now on the next page, we only have a little bit more to go here. That's the good news. We'll probably be done by 7, Jim. I don't know, but
I know.
okay, we're gonna do 7. If it's all numbers, you could just put it in the calculator. So we could just do 0.5 of is times 0.37 times 724. And you'll get out a number. What is that number, Jim?
I don't know, but if you just take 0.5 of this, you get the answer.
Yeah, if you fly like an eagle above the problem, you might see that 1/2 of 724 is 362. So the answer is A.
Right, because all those answer choices are in terms of that's 37%, so we leave that in
Yeah,
and just, yeah.
but it would be pretty easy to just multiply it all out and see which one, because they're all numbers. You just have to know that of means multiply. I mean, this is a long way back in your math career. I don't know how long. Okay. N is bigger than 0. I could pick a number, but really I'm trying to get 1n over 5. Basically here, which is 1/5, which is just 20%. Or I could pick a number. Okay, just a little more. Now, this is something I'm going to do a couple problems that aren't in the packet.
Maybe get you a word for it.
Okay. Okay. So first we're going to Parker. So you're going to buy a homecoming dress, okay? And the dress was $120, but it's down to 80. You see that formula there? It says the amount of the decrease or the increase all over the original. And that's the tricky part. So the decrease would be $40. But then I put it over how much it was originally. And so that would be 1/3. It went down 33 1/3%. So that's pretty simple, right? Does that make sense? It's just always what I just sort of want to drill in your brain. It's always over the original. So let's go to Jace. So he does extremely well on his SAT tomorrow. Yay. And he's at college pathway and he smiles at a girl. She smiles back. And the next thing you know, he's married with 6 kids. Okay. And so she says to him, honey, we need a bigger van. So let's say the van originally, don't laugh, my husband had 4 kids before we was 30 and he didn't want any. So the van is, let's say it's $25,000. But when they go out to buy their van, the new van is $50,000. A little shell shock, but he's okay. He's trusting God for the money. So, Okay, so we're taking the amount of the decrease or the increase. It went up 25,000. But I always put it over the original. So that van went up 1, it went up 100% in value. Does that make sense? Parker's nodding yes. Jace, you're good? Good. So let's look at this problem in the packet. I just want you just to remember it's the original. That's what can mess you up. I know it's weird this stuff is on the test. So I go to buy a jacket. It goes down $20. So it's 20, but it's always over the original, which is the 120. So the jacket went down 1/6 or 16 2/3%. Okay. So let's go to the top of the next page. I'm so glad you guys are still with me, paying attention. Nobody's sleeping like they did on Sunday. I was ready to grab the hoodie on the kid and pull it up. Like, wake up, this is your future. Okay, if a newspaper goes from 5 cents to 15 cents, it went up 10 cents, but I put it over the original. And that's going to be 2. That crazy thing went up 200%. Does that make sense? Okay, let's try a book one. I hope this isn't too hard. Maybe it's the hard one. 574, number 17. Hold on. 1 second, guys.
That's not bad.
Okay, we're going to page 574. What did I say?
Number 17, just have them try it, because it's pretty easy.
Okay, just try this one. I'll give you time to get there. We're getting to the end of this. The math is not involved as the function lesson. So we're going to 574. Too bad we don't have a yearbook. It would just include Parker and Jace. That would be a funny yearbook. Okay. And we're in module 1. So it goes up 7%. Which answer do I pick? I'll throw it to Jace since he's taking the test tomorrow. Is it A or C?
A.
No,
C.
because
I had C. I was about to say C.
Yeah,
okay.
we need that one.
We need the 1. Okay,
Yeah, the 1.
let's say there's 100 people in the town. If it just, you could pick a number. If it went up 7%, I want this to clear in your mind, that would only be 7 people. Do you see that? So A is a trap. But if I pick C, drop the percent, move it 2 over. Do you see? That'll be the answer I want. That'll be all the people.
You could think of that 1 as 100%.
Does that make sense, Jace? Yes or no? Because you want all the people. You just
Not just the increase.
This would just give you, A would just give you the increase. Do you see that, Parker? So a lot of kids who haven't done percents in a while, a lot of people would pick A.
I'm glad we covered that one, because that could be on his test tomorrow.
Yeah, but he's got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're all good. It's gonna be, we multiply 1 to get the total amount. Okay, back to the packet. So like I said, we'll be done. We should be done by 7 with the math, hopefully. So gross domestic product, that's all the money the country makes. And they tell us per person, that's what this per capita is. So we know what we do. We take gross CDP per capita is all the GDP of the total country divided by the population. I want to do it this way because it's percent. Okay, that's our formula. So we want to get the city's population in the year 2000. So we're going to do, we know per capita, every 26,000 equals all the, and I have to put 6 zeros after this, divided by X. So I'll let you do this.
And X will just be the total population.
Yeah, X should be our population,
For the year.
because I don't know it, but I can get it from these two figures. So see what you get with the calculator. That'll be 26,000 X equals 130 million. And you should get 5,000 people, right? Okay, good. Now we have a harder one. Sometimes the problem might come in pairs, and if they do that, the second one will be harder. So first we have to get 1990. So we're just going to focus on that, this one. So we have 32,000 equals 128 million over X, and we cross multiply, and we're going to get 4,000 people in 1990. That's not an exponent, it's just trying to change colors. Okay, now we got to do 2010. So once again, the per capita is 25 grand equals the 148 million over our population, we don't know it. And then I cross multiply, and I'm going to get 5920 for 2010. Now I want the percent increase. Okay. So I'm going to do the amount of the increase. Remember, it's always over the original. So that we can see it's 1920, 5920 minus 4,000. Sorry about this sloppy screen. And then I'm putting it over the original, which was 4 grand. And I'm going to get 48%.
You mean 4,000, not 4 grand, right?
Yeah, 4,000.
Yeah.
So we're okay with that? Okay, we're going to try a book one. So we're going to go to 256 at the bottom. It's an example in a great area. You guys look pretty alert for it coming through a long school day. Okay, the one I'm doing is the one in the middle of the page.
This one kind of sets itself up to dimensional analysis. If you like to use dimensional
Yeah.
analysis, you could.
So let's read this. Question 4. County-wide consists of 2 districts. One district has 30 square miles and a population density of 370 people. And the other district,
Per square mile, right?
yeah, per square mile. The other district has 50 square miles. And this would be a little harder. And the population is 290 in each mile.
Mile squared.
Okay. What is the population density in people per square mile for all of the county? So I want all the people over all the square miles. Well, all the square miles is not hard. It's just 50 and 30, which is 80. But I got to get all the people. That's the hard thing. So what I have to do is I have to multiply 50 square miles times 30. 30 times 370, which is 11,110 people.
11,100 people.
Okay. And then I have to multiply 50 times 290. And that's going to be 14,500. This would be a harder one. Okay. And so then all the people is 25,600 over 80. See what you get on your calculator. Did you get 320? Oh, good. Parker, did you get 320? So that was a process problem. Okay. All right. So now we're going to page 17 already in the packet. I know this is more of percents than you ever wanted to know in your life. So the value of a certain building increased from 1.6 to 2 million. So it went up 0.4 million. No, yeah, that's right, 0.4, yeah. So do I put it over the 1.6 or the 2, Parker?
The 1.6.
Yes, the original. Yes, because that's the original. That's good. That's very good. So it's 1/4 or 25%. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, let's try the next one. This, crazily enough, we had to get all our data to keep this honest. And so this is the actual number of farms in the US. Hard to believe. Okay. Based on the graph above, which of the following best expresses the decrease? So they know we can't get exact numbers. So let's say in 1950, let's say there's 5.4 million farms. I can write better than that in cursive, I promise. And then in 2010, what would you say, Jim?
I'd say 2.25.
We're doing the best we can. Okay, so we want to take the amount of the decrease, which would be what?
3.15.
3.15 over the original, the 5.4. And that's going to give us,
Gives it 58%, but it gets us close enough. They know you can't get it exact.
so it'd be about 60%.
Yeah, the only one we're close to is D.
Is that good? Everybody follow that over the original? Good. Okay, let's go to a book problem. We're going to hit this one more time here. So I'm on 505, and we're looking at number 16. This is a module 2. Okay, so let's read it together. A company opens an account. So we know the initial balance is 36,100. The account earns interest and no additional deposits or withdrawals are made. The account balance is given by an exponential function A, where A is the account balance T years after the account. So after 13 years, this should come out to be 68,000. Okay. So question to Jason, do I want to pick 1.05 or just 0.05? I got yes, 1.05. Good job. And so all I would have to do is put 13 in here. And if you put that in your calculator, it'll come out to A.
Also, just a quick suggestion from me. Always try year 0 and you have to get the 36,100. So instantly you know it's A or D without even doing any math at all. So I always test the initial condition because you can eliminate 2 answer choices right away.
Yeah. Okay. I keep saying this, but I know after a long school day, but this is your future, so. Okay, so we now are gonna go back to the packet and do this last thing. We have to do this in density, so we don't have much more. Okay, so the hardest problems will give you a twice increase or decrease. Okay, so
Did you tell them the strategy?
yeah, I haven't told them yet.
Yeah.
So for this type of problem, we're going to use 100 in the problem, whether or not it makes sense. You can use any number, but
Makes the math easy.
it makes the math easy. So let's,
So say it's a town, your town has 100 people. It doesn't need to make sense. It just makes really, really easy math.
so let's look at the example first. A town, so let's say there's 100 people in the town. It increased its population by 50% over 10 years, and then another 30% over the following 10 years. The trap answer, they want us to just add them and get 80. But it's not that easy, and so we have to do it in stages. So we have 100 people. We are going to increase it by 50%. So the intermediary number would be 150 because I took 50% of 100. Now I'm taking 30%
Of 150.
of 150, which is 45.
Mhm.
And so I'm going up to 195. And that's the beauty of picking the 100. Because from 100 to 195,
So we still put it over the original, which
Yeah,
was
we-
100.
oh, yeah, so we put it over the original, which is 95%.
So 195 over 100.
Right. Right.
95%.
Okay, so let's do,
Like you could pick realistic numbers for your town, but then it's just gonna make the math hard.
Yeah, we
And all
wanna
they
make-
want is the percent.
yeah, so let's say a computer is $100. That's a little weird. Okay, we're reducing it by 25%. So the computer goes down to $75. Then it's decreased by another 20, which is $15. And so the computer goes down to 60. So from 100 to 60, it went down 40%. Does that sort of make sense? Good. We're picking 100 just because it makes the whole problem easy on test day. One more. So we're going to call the telephone $100. That'd be pretty amazing, right? We're going to increase it by 10%. So the phone's going to go up to 110. And then we're going to take 25% off of that, which is what, 25%?
27.5.
27.5. So 110 minus 27.5, it's going to go down to 22.5%, which means it's going to be 80. We compare that to the 100.
You just said 110 minus 27.2. That's erase that. That's just 82.5.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is our answer.
right.
Okay. All right. Let's do the next page. Then we'll do a couple book problems. We'll do density and we'll be done. Okay, so let's say in the high school, there's only 100 kids. So we start with 100. We are going to go up. No, 70% signed up for a field trip. So that's 70 kids on a field trip. But then on the day of the field trip, 10% are sick and they don't go. So we take 7 off of 70. And then we get our answer. It was actually 63%. So that makes sense. We're just going to do a couple book problems and then go over density and then we're done. So these are on their example pages. So I want to go to 275. We're going to do number 13 and 14. Just so you can see how they did it on the book. Okay, 1 second here. Sorry, I'm getting my sea legs here. I also want to do this one. 580 number 12. Okay, let's go to 275 first. These are my smart kids, so I have to really push them a little bit. 275. Okay, you can see this is a hard one. So the number of crane flies in a wildlife sanctuary is 30% less than the ladybugs. So let's call the ladybugs. I wish I was a ladybug on your test tomorrow, Jason, and could see it. But you probably squashed me. That's Mrs. Hessler. Slammer. Okay, there's 100 ladybugs. Okay. We have these crazy crane flies. Where do they come up with these things? Crane flies are 30% less. So the crane flies are 70. So the number of honeybees is 1.85, because we put the 1 in there, times the crane flies. And so we're going to get a lot of bees. We're going to get 129.5. I multiply these two numbers. So we have a lot of honeybees. Now it says the number of honeybees is how many times the ladybugs. And so it's going to be 1.295. Now that one you have to think about, because I would have to multiply 100 times. They're meant to trip you up there to get this number. So think about that one for a second. We're in the real hard zone. Parker's sort of okay. Jason? Okay, let's try 14. We'll have those circles there, but. Okay. Hardest one. The number A is 210% of the number B. So let's call B 100. So A is going to be 2.1 times 100, which is 210. That's A. And then I know 210 is, C is what percent of B? So 210 is 30% of C. Divide by 0.30. And so C, or the percent, it's going to be a lot. It's 700. Now that's a lot to digest, I realize. That's only going to be way at the end of your test. But my prayer is that tomorrow, as you do these, as you take this, Jason, you're going to get a lot of questions right very fast. And then you'll have time in the bank for something hard like this. Okay, so the last one I want to do is 508, number 12.
580.
580, I'm sorry. And then we can go on to density. Okay. Everybody on 580, number 12. A gift shop. So they're buying, we have a wholesale price. We're in module 2, halfway through it. And remember to use your scratch paper tomorrow, Jason. So the souvenir, the wholesale price is $7. But then the company's going to resell them at a price that's 290% more. So the retail price will be 2.90 times $7. And so that's a pretty high markup. So they're selling these souvenirs at $20.30. Does that make sense? Everybody got that price? Okay. Then at the end of the season, they have to get everything out of there. So we're taking off 80%. So all we need is 20% of the retail price because we're taking off 80 and that takes away 2 steps. So when we multiply this by 0.20, and this is a hard one because we don't have any choices, it'll be 4.06. So the souvenir is pretty cheap at the end. That makes sense? Oh, good. Jason, you're good? You're good? Okay. So now let's go through the rest of the packet. We're gonna go all the way to page 21 because this big, just to show you, initially they told us we would have to know banking interest, which we don't, this, which we don't. And they did send us sample problems that were this bad, but then they never put them on the test.
You'll only have 1 or 2 unit conversions. They're not gonna make
Yeah.
you do a ton of them.
They scared us. So we're going to calculating density. This is our last thing. I promise. Okay. All right, so they don't give you this formula. So I have my little memory aid, is like I've had through the whole thing. You know, Jason, you saw that oh, what am I thinking? In the statistics lesson, standard deviation, my nose thing, remember? You saw that? Okay, so the lowest standard deviation looks more like a nose. So this one is that I love density because it's mass over volume. That's a little memory aid to help you, okay?
Do they give you that formula in the question?
No, they
Or
used
on the
to.
formula page for that?
No, it's not on the formula page, not anywhere, you dumb college board.
I can't believe they used to give you that formula.
I know.
Swear.
Okay, so we could look at the example. So it's I love density, mass over volume. So here, the block is 1678. They're making us calculate the volume because we can do length times width times height. And we're going to get a density of C. So last page. Hooray! Okay. So we're going to start with our formula. And then we're going to do 3 of these, 1 in the book, and then I say goodbye to Jason forever. I'll see you in heaven. Okay. So we have density is mass over volume. So they give us the density of silver, that's 10.5. We don't know the volume, but we do know it's 3150 grams. So you can just cross multiply this and put it in the calculator. And I'll let you do it. You know, you're just going to say 10.5 V. And did you get 300 volume cubic centimeters? Good. All right, another one. I wanted, okay, so we know I love density because it's mass over volume. So the density is 3.5. A diamond's pretty hard. Its volume is 1.5. We need to get the mass. So we're just going to multiply 3.5 times 1.5, and we'll get 5.25 C. And the last one, so we have to figure out the volume because they don't. So we have a piece of wood. It's 13 by 2 by 2. So we know I love density. I know it's pretty corny. because that's mass. So it's 50 grams. And when I multiply this, I get 52. That's just 2 times 2 times 13. 4 times 13 is 52. And so 50 over 52 is going to be a little less than 1, which makes sense because water is 1 and wood floats. So it has to be lighter than the water, which is 1. So your last mission is to go to page 580. And I'm going to have you try number 9. Okay, Parker and Jace, did you get 580? Is it 88?
Yeah.
588A? Good. Okay, Jace.
Write down, message you.
Wait, yeah, I sure could.
Okay, take a break, back at 7:20.
So Jace, bye. You in my thoughts and prayers tomorrow. I'll see you in heaven.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But let us know what your score is.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, take a break, guys.
All right.
Yep. Styles. Sorry.
Hey, Jason. Hi, Parker. We're just gonna do craft and structure, so find that packet. Great. So for the English today, we're just going to look at words in context. We're going to look at text structure and purpose questions and cross-text connections. Okay, and believe it or not, this will be 28% of the English on the test. All right, so we'll start with words in context. So they will test your understanding of vocabulary, and they always test it in context. So they'll always use it in a sentence or ask you to use it in a sentence. So you'll either have a fill in the blank type of a question, or they will ask for the synonym of an underlined word or phrase. So you'll either get a fill in the blank or a synonym question. And let's take a look at a sample one. So this is going to be one of those fill in the blank questions. So I'm just going to read the question, and I'm going to read all of the answer choices right in the blank. I'm going to read A, B, C, and D right in where that little blank is. Only one of them will make logical sense, and three of those sentences would be gibberish. So let's try it. The Nature Conservancy has announced that it has broadened the insurance policy it has purchased to protect Hawaii's coral reefs in the event of strong storms. Hawaii is part of a growing catalog of locations that seek to prove that parametric insurance for vulnerable ecosystems is a blank strategy. So I'm just going to read biased in there. Okay, so Hawaii seeks to prove that insurance for vulnerable ecosystems is a biased strategy that makes no sense, a misguided strategy that makes no sense, a tenuous strategy that would make no sense. Another thing that we can do is just look at the charges of the words. You see how we have three words with a negative connotation and only one positive word? The positive one is the one we're looking for. So if something is viable, it just means it's feasible. If your plan is viable, it just means I think it's feasible. It could work. So consider the charges as well. It can be a useful way If you have three, pejorative terms, three negative terms, and then one positive term, it's probably going to be the positive term. Yep, so you just read those but right back in the blank. One will make sense, three of them won't make any sense at all. The synonym questions, we can also read the words back in place for it to find the synonym. So we'll look at a synonym question. All right, that's our strategy right here. Read the words back in. All right, and here is a synonym question. Okay, so this question is taken from a novel. So we're just going to read this little excerpt from the novel. Mrs. Hale was curiously amused and interested by the idea of the Thornton dinner party. She kept wondering about the details with something of the simplicity of a little child who wants to have all its anticipated pleasure described beforehand. All right, then they say, as used in the text, what does the word anticipated most nearly mean? So we do have a synonym question here. I just need to find a word with a similar meaning. And we can read the words back into it. That's not a bad strategy. But if we read, maybe I'll read unwanted back in the sentence. If it makes no sense, I'm just going to cross it off. She kept wondering about the details with something of the simplicity of a little child who wants to have all its unwanted pleasure described beforehand. That makes no sense. If we read the words prior or preceding in the sentence, neither of those would make any sense. Preceding pleasure described beforehand. You see how that's that's redundant. We're talking about multiple things that happened in the past that makes no sense. Awaited would make perfect sense though. So she kept wondering about the details with something of the simplicity of a little child who wants to have all its awaited pleasure described beforehand. So that makes perfect sense. Three answer choices will always make no sense, and you just pick the one that fits. So that's a synonym question. I have seen them ask for a whole phrase before, so sometimes they want to know what a whole phrase means. Just be aware it might not be a single word. They might ask about a phrase. All right, so we just figured out which word was synonymous. It was anticipated. Or it was awaited, I mean. All right, on to word type. Okay, so they cap the difficulty for the vocabulary on the SAT. They're mainly interested in what they're calling tier 2 words. These are words that would be typically encountered in an academic or professional setting. I'm going to go over all of the types of words they don't test, just because I want you to be aware of they're not going to test you on certain words. So we'll talk about that a little bit first, and then we'll look at some of the words that they will test you on. So I'm going to mention all the things that we like to tell you what you don't have to know. So they're never going to test you on any words that are colloquial. These are words that are common to everyday speech and are often informal. They're not going to test you on any such words. You will not be tested on words that are derived from niche areas of study. For example, they're not going to ask you what alkaline means. That's a chemistry term. We don't need to know it for the test. They're not going to ask you what about an anode or a bivalve. I think that's a biology term. Deontology, this ology part is the study of this. This is the study of ethics. So that's a philosophy term. Edema, I think that's a skin condition. So you don't have to know any medical terms. If they put a lien on your house, that's a bad thing. That means they're probably going to take your house, but we don't need to know about such legal terms, or even the word jurisprudence. That's a legal term. We don't need to know that. That's the study of law. So they're not going to test you on any of those niche words. And they will not test you on any words that are uncommonly encountered. So years ago, the SAT contained words such as these, very, very difficult words that you would typically only encounter in old literature or a law textbook, or maybe if you read the New York Times, you might come across some of these words. So you don't need to know what a malediction is. Well, mal means bad. Diction is speech or writing. So just add them together, and this is a curse. A malediction is a curse. A missive is a letter that you might mail to someone, dear so and so. Perfidy. Fidelity is faithfulness. Semper Fi, right? Always faithful. That's a motto. I think that's a Marine Corps motto. The per is going to negate that. So perfidy is treachery. Quixotic comes from the name Don Quixote. So if you're quixotic, you're foolishly idealistic, like that gentleman was. And you don't need to know what supercilious is. I just wanted to give you a sense of, where does it stop, but they cap the difficulty. But I do want to look at just a couple in the book briefly, just to see that some of these tier two words, they seem to be a little bit harder than you would think. I've just been noticing that lately it seems like they're ramping up the text complexity and the difficulty of the words just a little bit. So I'm just going to give you a page number from the blue book just to look at a couple of their samples. So this is page 135 in the book. So turn to page 135 in the book. I want to look at this example on the bottom of page 135, and I also want to look at the one on the previous page. We're going to look at the one on page 134 to just get a sense, a feel for the difficulty of these words. All right, I'm going to read the one on 135. This one's the easier of the two questions, so let's look at this one first. Mrs. Adams had always been fond of vases, she said, and every year her husband's Christmas present to her was a vase of one sort or another, whatever the clerk showed him, marked at about $12 or $14. So what I've noticed is the SAT, they're often interested in definitions for a word that are a little atypical. Like if you're thinking about marking something, we would usually mean, okay, darkening it with a marker or a pen or something. But here, the word marked means priced. So if you were to pick up a dictionary and you look up the verb to mark, if we're looking for a price, that's probably not the first thing that's going to show up in the dictionary. That's probably, how they number the definitions in order of frequency of use? That would be like 6 or 7 down. You know what I mean? That's sort of the type of word they like to select. They like to select words in a context in which they are not normally used. But if you read these words back in the sentence, it's pretty clear that it's not a stained. But if I were thinking about marking something without any context at all, I'm probably thinking about something like answer choice A if I had a marker or something. So I just wanted to mention that they'll often test the less frequently used definition in context, which can be a little strange. All right, so I wanted to briefly talk about that, but still not too hard. But let's look at the one on the previous page. Now I'm on page 134. It's the same sort of idea. It's just a fill in the blank question. I'm going to read this question and we'll look at these answer choices. So here's the question. Economist Marco Castillo and colleagues showed that nuisance costs, the time and effort people must spend to make donations, reduce charitable giving. Charities can mitigate, they can lessen this effect by compensating donors for nuisance costs, but those costs, though variable, are largely blank donation size. So charities that compensate donors will likely favor attracting a few large donors over many small donors. Okay, so this one's kind of interesting. I'm looking at the answer choices, and predictive. That's not too hard. Subsumed. That looks like a pretty difficult word. They're considering that a tier 2 word. I think that that's kind of a difficult word to consider a tier 2 word, but here it is right on their test. So that's sort of what I was talking about as far as, yeah, they're not going to, ask you about the word supercilious, but they might ask about something like this. So let me just make a note about this. Subsume. It means to absorb. So to subsume something means to absorb it, but that's not even the right answer choice. This one would actually be answer choice C. This is a hard question, I think. They say that the nuisance costs, charities can mitigate this effect by compensating donors for nuisance costs, but these costs, though variable, are largely independent of donation size, which this would kind of make sense. So say there's some kind of cost associated with making a donation, maybe it's postage, who knows what it is. if you have many, many, many donors who are making small donations, and if you compensate all of these donors for the nuisance cost, that's going to be much more expensive than if you had just a few donors who are donating quite a bit of money, because those nuisance costs are going to be relatively low, if we don't have thousands of people. If, say it's only 10 people donating large sums. So that's sort of what this question is talking about here. But I just want to, every now and then I'm looking at some of these tests on that were, on Blue Book, and I see harder words than I would expect. So I just wanted to cover that. Just like, don't be terrified if you see words that are just a little bit harder than you would think. You're just going to approach the test. You're going to approach that question in the same exact manner as you would any of the other ones. All right, so here we have a word list of, this is just to get an idea of what tier 2 words generally look like. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the list that we've come up with of the type of words that they're mainly interested in. So they may expect you to know what ambiguous means, or if something is anomalous, it's abnormal in some way. So these words are all fair game. And I would even argue that there are some that are even harder than this word bank. Lately, I've noticed that the words seem to be a little bit trickier. They're not going to ask for any super hard words. They don't expect you to know what, just kind of come up with some from my head, what tantamount means. They probably don't expect you to know what surreptitious means. I mean, you probably know some of these words means, but they're not going to be on the test. It's mainly going to be words like this. So what does it mean if something is tertiary? It just means it's ancillary. So I would just be familiar with some of these words. Just make sure that you could define these if you had to in a pinch, or make sure at the very least you could use these in sentences. And that's all. That's mainly what you have to do. So the difficulty of the words is not too bad. It's very doable. All right, we're on to text structure and purpose. Yeah, so we're making good progress here. So they will ask you about the purpose of a text. And this is very similar to a main idea question. We saw main idea questions last week. They'll ask you about the main idea of a passage. Well, if you're asked about the main purpose of a text, that's going to be similar to its main idea. So what function does it serve? What's its purpose? So let's look at a purpose question. All right, here's one about wildfires. Wildfires in Colombia usually follow a December to March dry season, and the number of fires varies yearly. A study from 2000 to 2020 determined that Colombia typically experiences 100 to 300 wildfires in January. Since the nation began collecting wildfire data, January 2024 represents the first time in the month's total, the first time the month's total has exceeded 500 wildfires. So this sounds like it's greater than what is typical. Climate change likely has played a role in their increase in frequency and severity. Okay, so they're saying that they increased in January 2024, and they also provide a likely reason. They're saying this is probably climate change. So what is the purpose of this text? Let's look at some of the wrong answers. It presents a working hypothesis of a study that remains unresolved. Not really. Does this downplay the ecological importance of wildfires in Colombia? No, that's not the purpose of this. Does it say that they have remained at their previous frequency? Nope. We're just utilizing historical data to demonstrate that it has increased, and we are provided with a reason, which was A. So they'll ask you about the purpose of a text. It's very similar to a main idea question, in my opinion. All right, on to the next thing. All right, we're going to look at this one. They might ask you about, sorry, just my nose is itchy today. I don't know why. All right. So they might ask you about the purpose of an underlined portion of a text. And that's what we have here. So this is from Mark Twain short story, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. So I'm going to read this little excerpt. We can assume this is from the short story. They're not trying to trick us in any way. It doesn't matter that we've never read this short story. All we need is this paragraph. So I'm going to read it, and then we just have to think about the underlined portion. What is its function? Simon Wheeler backed me into a corner and blockaded me there with his chair, and then sat down and reeled off the monotonous narrative which follows this paragraph. He never smiled. He never frowned. He never changed his voice from the gentle flowing key to which he tuned his initial sentence. He never betrayed the slightest suspicion of enthusiasm. But all through the interminable narrative there ran a vein of impressive earnestness and sincerity, which showed me plainly that, so far from his imagining that there was anything ridiculous or funny about his story, he regarded it as a really important matter, and admired its two heroes as men of transcendent genius in finesse. I let him go on in his own way and never interrupted him once. All right, so which choice best describes the function of the underlined sentence in the text as a whole? I'm just going to read some of the answer choices, and if I can eliminate them, I'm just going to cross them right off. There's a button right on the Blue Book software. You can cross off the whole answer choice. Just click it, boom. You won't pick it on accident. Just use that function. It's nice. All right. Does the underlined portion concede that particular elements of Wheeler's story have been partially forgotten? Nope, there's nothing in that underlined portion that reveals to me that maybe he forgets some of the story. Does it undermine the credibility of Wheeler's story? Do I feel that I can't believe him because of this underlined portion? No, I don't think that that's necessarily true. Does it indicate that the story Wheeler is sharing is to remain in confidence? No, there's nothing in here that, indicates that he doesn't want us to tell anybody about this. Do we have is he present are we the reader presented with something that indicates that a fantastic story will follow that is told with complete seriousness? Yes, and I see both parts here. I see the fantastic part and I see the seriousness. So I'm just going to go back to our little underlined portion. Okay, so there'll be no suspicion of enthusiasm. So far, we don't think that he would imagine that there's anything ridiculous or funny about his story. There's a contradiction. It's sort of setting up a contradiction. I could tell that whatever this story is probably absolutely absurd. But it's told with complete earnestness and sincerity, or will be told with complete earnestness and sincerity. And I could see the setup here. So we're going to get a crazy story that is told with complete seriousness. And there are enough context clues here to determine that what follows is going to be a silly story. So he's setting up Mark Twain is setting up a contradiction here for humor. Humor is often we find humor in contradiction, I should say. All right. So there's a discrepancy between the absurdity of the story itself and Wheeler's delivery of it. He's saying he's going to say a crazy story with a straight face, essentially. And we know that just from that underlined portion. All right. Cross-text connections. So these are the paired passage questions. There will be two passages, and we'll have two authors. So we'll have passage 1, passage 2, author 1, author 2. The two authors will be they'll be writing about a similar subject. They probably do not agree with one another. They probably disagree with one another, really. I mean, sometimes you may see them agree. Perhaps author 2 agrees with author 1, but to a lesser extent. We've seen pro and con relationships. Those are very common with these. But the important part is to remember who thinks what does author 1 think, what does author 2 think? Because if you get them mixed up, you'll probably pick the wrong answer. The wrong answers are often based on the other author, not the author you're looking for. So we're just going to take a look at one here. So both of these authors are going to be writing about the topic of gentrification. All right, so we'll see what we have. Maybe we have a pro and con. I'm not sure yet. So I'm just going to read the first text, and then we're going to read the second text, and then they give us a prompt here. It says, based on the two texts, how would author 2 respond to the underlined statement from author 1? So we're going to read these passages and see what author 2 might say. I'm going to just read this. All right. Yeah, I think the important part to remember is that they probably disagree. They probably don't see eye to eye, these two authors, even though they're talking about the same subject. Often criticized as the adverse consequence of a city's own success, the process of gentrification, to the contrary, provides the revitalization that is sorely needed in many rundown neighborhoods. Gentrification brings with it the promise of lower crime rates, increased economic activity, and fewer abandoned properties. Concentrated areas of poverty produce a heavy burden on public resources, and urban redevelopment greatly eliminates this strain. Additionally, the increase in property taxes associated with urban revival provide the funding needed for better schools, better public transportation, and public works such as parks and community centers. Okay, so that's our first passage. Now let's see what the second author thinks about gentrification. They probably disagree, so just get used to the idea that these authors probably don't agree. They seldom agree, even though they're talking about the same thing. Those who argue that the well-to-do middle class should be free to move into any area they wish do not appreciate the reality that lower-class families inhabiting formerly affordable properties in developing neighborhoods are unable to move into the high-opportunity neighborhoods that the gentrifiers have chosen to leave. What makes the gentrification of our urban neighborhoods a troubling case is that once enough of the privileged classes settle in a historically diverse lower class urban neighborhood, the property values increase along with the rent. Families who have inhabited a single neighborhood for generations are uprooted when they can no longer afford to live in their own homes. Okay, so that's what author 2 thinks. Yeah, they disagree completely. I do think we have a pro and con relationship. I'm just going to label that pro, con. And then gentrification, I'm just going to clarify this because I don't think I mentioned this yet. This comes from the word gentry. And these were historically aristocrats. If they're gentry, that means they have wealth, they have property. So gentrification is just a thing that happens in cities. All right, and I think we do have a pro and con relationship here. So how would author 2 respond to the underlined portion from passage 1? The underlined sentence says, concentrated areas of poverty produce a heavy burden on public resources, and urban development greatly eliminates this strain. All right, I'm just going to check an answer choice. Let's try A. Let's see if author 2 would say this about author 1. Lower class families will be able to find new housing in other places when gentrification occurs. That's not what author 2 says. Author 2 says that they will have a hard time finding a new home when gentrification occurs. So author 2 is not going to make that claim. Let's look at B. Would author 2 say that gentrification improves neighborhoods that have historically experienced poverty and decline? Author 2 is not going to say that, but you know who would say that? Author 1. So what I've noticed is that the wrong answers, they're from the other passage. This is what author 1 thinks, not what author 2 thinks. So you read something similar to answer choice B, but it was by author 1, not author 2. So the wrong answer choices are often from the perspective of the other author. And they know that the clock is ticking. They know that your anxiety is going through the roof, and you don't have much time left on this test. And they know that people will be tricked into, picking something by the other author or something that the other author thinks. Gentrification is a necessary evil that must be endured to revitalize impoverished areas. Author 2 wouldn't say that. Author 2 would say this: families that have historically inhabited a newly gentrified area are unfairly displaced. That is author 2's argument in a nutshell. Author 2 would say answer choice D. So just have to keep an eye on perspective. The two authors probably disagree with one another. So, even though they're talking about the same subject, they don't agree, usually. All right. So that's the paired passage. All right, so now we have some sample SAT questions right here at the end. This is everything we went over today. We have some of the fill in the blank ones. Pardon me. We have a purpose question. We have some more fill in the blanks. We have a synonym question, number 4, and then another fill in the blank. So try these 5. Take about 5 minutes. This is just going to be exactly how the test is going to look, tomorrow for Jason. So just try these 5. We'll add up how many you get right out of 5. Just read the words back in the sentence. There is no better strategy than that one. So take 5 minutes and we will go over these together. Okay, I think you guys ready? I see nodding heads. Good. Yeah, it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, so that makes sense. All right, let's try these ones. All right, I think we're just starting with a fill in the blank. All right. So I'm going to read the question. In an education system that is increasingly dependent on technology, such as smartphones, tablets, and the internet in general, students in economically disadvantaged situations are finding difficulty completing their online homework assignments at home. If educators plan to continue to rely so heavily on access to such technology, government programs to connect these students must be funded to blank a level playing field in education. So we're just going to read the words back into the sentence. I made a little note about the charges of these words. I think we have 2 positive words, enhance and maintain, and we have 2 negative words, exclude and dispossess. So maybe we'll try the negative ones first. All right. If educators plan to continue to rely so heavily on access to such technology, government programs to connect these students must be funded to exclude a level playing field in education. That makes no sense. To dispossess a level playing field in education makes no sense. All right. So we eliminated 2 answer choices. If we randomly guessed at this point, we would have a 50-50 chance, which is pretty good. So anytime you can eliminate 2 answer choices, that's great. Even if we randomly guessed at this point, it's 50-50. And there's just a little button you can use in Blue Book to cross off the whole answer if you know it's the wrong answer. All right, I'm going to try enhance. If educators plan to continue to rely so heavily on access to such technology, government programs to connect these students must be funded to enhance a level playing field in education. That didn't make sense. Let's try the right answer, maintain. Government programs, all right, so government programs must be funded to maintain a level playing field in education, and that makes perfect sense. That's our right answer. All right, on to the next one. So here we have some autobiography. This is from Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written by herself. All right, so I'm going to read this excerpt from the autobiography. And they're asking, I always just kind of look at what we're looking for. And they want to know the main purpose of the text. This is very similar to a main idea question. Just a little bit different. Purpose. Okay, let's take a look. You may believe what I say, for I write only that whereof I know. I was 21 years in that cage of obscene birds. I can testify from my own experience and observation that slavery is a curse to the whites as well as to the blacks. It makes the white fathers cruel and sensual, the sons violent and licentious. Licentious just means lascivious. It contaminates the daughters and makes the wives wretched. And as for the colored race, it needs an abler pen than mine to describe the extremity of their sufferings, the depth of their degradation. What is the main purpose of the text? So I'm going to go through some of these answer choices, and if it seems like I can eliminate it, I'm just going to cross off the whole thing with that button in Blue Book. Does this passage argue that does it argue that the institution of slavery has always existed and will continue to exist? No, I don't think there's anything in the passage that argues that. I'm going to cross it off. Does it emphasize the disproportionate power dynamic between master and slave? Not primarily. I'm going to cross it off. What about D? Does it indicate that attitudes regarding the tolerance of slavery will change as society progresses? I don't think that the passage makes that claim. How about C? Does it establish the all-encompassing corruptive nature of the institution of slavery? Absolutely. It is a curse to the whites as well as to the blacks for all of those reasons. Okay. So that was a purpose question. Here we have another fill in the blank question. I'm just going to do these last 3, and then we'll try some book ones with our remaining time. All right. The rapid expansion of a seaweed called sargassum is threatening Caribbean islands. Scientists believe the unrestricted growth of the algae is partly fueled by fertilizer runoff from the Mississippi and Amazon river systems. Increased levels of phosphate and nitrogen combined with warming temperatures from climate change have blanked dramatic growth of the sargassum, which washes up on beaches, creating large decaying masses that threaten local ecosystems. All right, so it's just a fill in the blank question. We are just going to read the words back in the sentence, but I've noticed something. I've noticed the charge of the words. I've noticed two negative words, a little minus sign here. I noticed a positive word and one more negative word. So already, just looking at the charges of the words, I think I know the answer. You know, you see a dramatic difference. It's probably the one, that's different. All right, let's read a wrong answer in though. Let's see how it works. Let's try hindered. Increased levels of phosphate and nitrogen combined with warming temperatures from climate change have hindered dramatic growth. Makes no sense. Blighted dramatic growth, that would make no sense. Harmed dramatic growth, we know the opposite is the case. We know that essentially these are fertilizers. They spur dramatic growth of the sargassum, which is a bad thing. It's a positive word, but the climate impact is a negative thing. But the charges of the word themselves, that spurred is a positive charge. So we're spurring on a negative thing. To spur means to excite, as with a spur. It's like a horse term, spurred. On to number 4. All right. They're asking us about the word symmetry. Dissonance is a negative word. Craft is a positive word. Beauty is a positive word. Balance is a positive word. So I have 3 positives and 1 negative. The correct answer choice, let's see. The bending fisherman and his lines mirror the triangle created by Mount Fuji. Such dissonance is characteristic of Japanese art of this time period. That makes no sense. Okay, so this one's a little tricky because we do find symmetrical things to be beautiful, like if you cut a diamond or something. But if we look up the word symmetry in a dictionary, it never has the meaning of beauty. Right, so it can't contradict its own. I mean, we want to read the words back in the sentence, but it can't contradict its own dictionary definition, which would be the word balance. So if something's symmetrical, it's balanced, maybe like an isosceles triangle. So there's an equal amount over here as there is over here, and these sides would be the same length. It's symmetrical. I'm just picturing what a mountain might look like. All right, on to the last one. I see a positive word. I see some negative words. Not a bad idea to just maybe note the charges of the words. 8 hydrogen bonds allow this material to have an advantageous mix of strength and elasticity. If we read those negative words in the sentence, none of them are going to make sense. You're just going to get gibberish. Add up how many you got right out of 5. Maybe I missed one. I got a 4 out of 5. That's still pretty good. I'd probably be in the 600s if I missed one of these. So not awful, but we're going to try some book ones with our remaining time. I'm just going to give you a page number. We're just going to drill some of these from the book, and then we'll be done for the evening. So Jason can get some sleep and rest up for this big day. All right, here we go. So we're going to do the craft and structure drills. These are on page 149. So turn to that in the blue book. Well, I promise this will be the last thing we do tonight. We're just going to do some of these, and yeah. So let's turn to page 149. So it looks like we have some fill in the blank ones and some other ones. Oh, we have some paired passages too. That'll probably be good to practice. Let's just try these 10. We'll add up how many we get right out of 10. Give them a real try. Yeah, we'll briefly talk about them and then we'll be done for tonight. So yeah, give these ones a shot. We'll just do 10 more, go over them, and then that's it. Okay, it's been a few minutes. I am just gonna start going over these just in the interest of time, just so we can get out on time and so Jason can get some sleep. I think this is a really good exercise though, because they go from easy to hard, just like the actual test. These are getting much harder by the time we get to these paired passages. So I think that's very cool. The first one I think is super easy. So let's start with the easy one. All right. So just to fill in the blank question, we just read the words back into the blank. Biologist Jane Edgelow and colleagues have located what is believed to be the largest individual plant in the world in the Shark Bay area of Australia. The plant is a type of seagrass called Posidonia australis, and it spans approximately 200 square kilometers. That one makes perfect sense. If you were to read in any of those other words, we would have gibberish. So read the words back in. They're starting off pretty easy. Let's look at number 2. I noted the charges of the words here too. I mean, it could be an effective way to eliminate 50% of the answer choices just right away. Okay. Osage Nation citizen Randy Tinker Smith produced and directed the ballet was Hazy, which vividly chronicles Osage history and culture. Telling Osage stories through ballet is a or an blank choice because two of the foremost ballet dancers of the 20th century were Osage, sisters Maria and Marjorie Tallchief. All right, if we read either of the negative words into the blank, neither of them would make any sense. We immediately eliminated 50% of the answer choices, which is great. What about determined or suitable? I'm going to read determined first. Let's see if it fits. Telling Osage stories through ballet is a determined choice because two of the foremost ballet dancers of the 20th century were Osage. It almost makes sense, but there's a better choice, which would be D, the correct answer. Let me read suitable in there. It fits like a glove, like just like a little Tetris piece or whatever. It's going to go right in that blank. Telling Osage stories through ballet is a suitable choice because two of the foremost ballet dancers of the 20th century were Osage. It makes more sense than determined. Although they like to pick near, what I just sort of call them near words. It's just my own term. But these are words that would almost fit, but there's a better word, this word. Watch out for near words or almost words, whatever you want to call them. On to number 3. Okay, so they can text you on it's a synonym question, but they want to know a synonym for this whole phrase. So watch out. They could throw a phrase in there like we have here. All right. The following is from the short story John Redding Goes to Sea. John wants to travel far beyond the village where he lives near his mother, Maddie. John had on several occasions attempted to reconcile his mother to the notion, but found it a difficult task. Maddie always took refuge in self-pity and tears. Her son's desires were incomprehensible to her. That was all. All right, so what does the phrase reconcile his mother to most nearly mean? So I think that they're sort of playing on this word to reconcile in its dictionary definitions. So when we think of to reconcile, we usually think of reconciliation, reunification, or apologizing for something. These are all the wrong answers. Um, what this phrase means in context would be get his mother to accept. Yeah. And if you read this phrase back in the sentence, it would make the most sense. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep moving. On to number 4. All right, I think it's an anthropology question. Micheline Peasant to be a historian and citizen of the Choctaw Nation has identified a dilemma inherent to research on the status of women in her tribe during the 1600s and 1700s. The primary sources from that era, travel narratives and other accounts by male European colonizers, underestimate the degree of power conferred on Choctaw women by their traditional roles in political, civic, and ceremonial life. Peasant to be argues that the Choctaw oral tradition and findings from archaeological sites in the tribe's homeland supplement the written record by providing crucial insights into those roles. All right. So which choice best describes the overall structure of the text? So they're asking us about the structure. Let's look at some answer choices. Maybe we'll look at a wrong answer. Let's look at A. It details the shortcomings of certain historical sources. I would agree with that part. But what about the second part of this sentence? Then argues that research should avoid these sources altogether? Absolutely not. See this word supplement I underlined? We're definitely not avoiding them altogether. That would be incorrect. The right answer for this one is B. It describes a problem that arises in research on a particular topic. All of our primary sources are white colonizers, white male colonizers. Then sketches a historian's approach to addressing the problem. What's the approach to address the problem? Well, let's supplement the written record by using the oral tradition. All right, on to the next one, number 5. All right, so this is from a novel, The Fatal Garland. Shakti is walking near a riverbank that she visited frequently during her childhood. She crossed the woods she knew so well. The trees seemed to extend their branches like welcoming arms. They greeted her as an old friend. Soon she reached the riverside. Which choice best describes the function of the underlined portion in the text as a whole? Okay, so here the underlined portion of the text is personification. And this is just when we give human qualities to non-human things. The trees are extending their branches like welcoming arms. That's personification. So what's the function of the personification? It emphasizes Shakti's sense of belonging in the landscape. Not too bad for that one. A little bit of personification there. On to the next question, 6. All right, so this is from Oscar Wilde's nonfiction work, De Profundis. They're asking us about the underlying question. I'm going to read the whole thing and then we'll talk about the underlying question. People whose desire is solely for self-realization never know where they are going. They can't know. In one sense of the word, it is of course necessary to know oneself. That is the first achievement of knowledge. But to recognize that the soul of a man is unknowable is the ultimate achievement of wisdom. The final mystery is oneself. When one has weighed the sun in the balance and measured the steps of the moon and mapped out the 7 heavens star by star, there still remains oneself. Who can calculate the orbit of his own soul? All right. So that's the underlined sentence. It is a rhetorical question. So a rhetorical question is just any question where any question where we don't want a literal answer. It's rather asked for effect. This whole question is asked for effect rather than I don't have an answer to this. You know, who can calculate the orbit of his own soul? It's Jeff over there. That's what I mean by a rhetorical question. This is a question without a literal answer. It's said for effect. Okay, so what's the purpose of the rhetorical question? It reinforces the text's skepticism about the possibility of truly achieving self-knowledge. All right, that's a rhetorical question. We can't possibly know the answer to that question. On to number 7. Oh, it's a purpose question. All right. In many agricultural environments, the banks of streams are kept forested to protect water quality, but it's been unclear what effects these forests may have on stream biodiversity. Okay, to investigate the issue, biologist Jingli Jiam and colleagues studied an Indonesian oil palm plantation, comparing the species richness of forded streams with that of non-forested forested streams. Giam and colleagues found that species richness was significantly higher in forested streams. Interesting. I'm gonna just underline that so I remember that. A finding that the researchers attribute to the role leaf litter plays in sheltering fish from predators and providing food sources. All right, so which choice best states the main purpose of the text? Okay, let's look at some answer choices here. Let's look at C. I'm just going to consider C. Does it discuss research intended to settle a debate? What debate? About how agricultural yields can be increased without negative effects on water quality. Agricultural yields? That's not what the study was studying. I don't see anything in there about agricultural yields. I mean, I know that we're on a palm plantation, but that's not what the scientists were studying. They're not studying agricultural yields. I'm going to cross this one off. That's the wrong answer. Okay, let's look at D. Does it describe findings that are that challenge a previously held view? What previously held view? About how fish that inhabit streams and agricultural environments attempt to avoid predators. I don't think it's doing that. What about answer choice A? Does it present a study that addresses an unresolved question about the presence of forests along streams in agricultural environments? Absolutely. It is asking an unresolved question about biodiversity, which is what they're studying, biodiversity. All right, there we go. Let's look at that last answer. It explains the differences between stream protection strategies used in oil palm plantations and stream protection strategies used in other kinds of agricultural environments. No, they're not doing that. All right, we are on to the paired passages. I'm going to try to get through these in the next just couple minutes. I may not read the whole question. I'm just going to, you just read these questions, so I don't need to reread the entire question to answer this. Let's look at this one. All right, so they're both writing about this person, Alvin Ailey. All right, based on the text, both authors would agree with which statement? All right, so we just have to find the one that they would both agree with. Is it A, audiences were mostly unfamiliar with the jazz music in Ailey's works? Neither passage makes that claim. I'm going to cross it off. All right. Let's look at another wrong answer. D, Ailey blended multiple genres of music together when choreographing dance pieces. No, just jazz. That one's wrong. The right answer was B. Both passages indicate that Ailey's work was strongly influenced by jazz. Even if you read the first sentence of each passage, boom, boom. All right. Number 9. The idea that time moves in only one direction is instinctively understood, yet it puzzles physicists. I'm firmly in the time only moves forward camp. All right. Let's look at this one. Let's look at a wrong answer. Let's look at D. It would suggest, okay, so based on this text, what would the author of text 2 say about the experiment described in text 1? All right, so what would our author 1 say about the experiment described in text 2? Let's look at a wrong answer, D. It would suggest that an interesting direction for future research, were it not the case that 2 of the physicists who conducted the experiment disagree on the significance of its findings. You know what? They never indicate that. I'm going to cross off the wrong answer. The right answer for this one was B. They are getting harder. They're getting much harder. Last one. All right. Literacy in this script. All right, so the important thing, I'm just going to read the prompt here. They say, based on the text, how would the author of text 2 characterize the theory from text 1? So here's the theory. This person theorized that the symbols signified units of language smaller than words, syllables. Let's look at a wrong answer. A, by praising the theory for recognizing the script symbols could represent entire words. No, that passage from text 1 says syllables, not entire words. That's wrong. Wrong. Okay, what about C? By approving of the theory's emphasis on how the script changed over time, there's no mention of how the script changes over time. All right. What about B? By arguing that the theory is overly influenced by the work of earlier scholars. What earlier scholars? They never mentioned that. Let's look at D, the right answer. By cautioning that the theory overlooks certain aspects of how the script functions. What two aspects does the theory overlook? It overlooks syntax and content. All right, add up how many you got right out of 10. We are going to be done for tonight. I just wanted to make one final, just another announcement or so. All right. So Jason's taking the test tomorrow. Good luck on your exam. Make sure you get a full night's sleep. Make sure you eat breakfast. Make sure that your device is fully charged and has Blue Book installed on it. Everything's ready to go. Make sure you have your printout for the College Board, everything you need for tomorrow. And good luck on your test. And Parker, please take practice test 3 on Saturday. And that's it. That's all we got. So good luck to Jason and good luck in all your future endeavors. And yeah, and we'll see you next week, Parker. Are you guys good?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good
Yeah,
one.
good night. Good luck. You're gonna crush it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
See ya.
Yep.